Hi, everybody. This is Dave. I haven't had a chance to talk to everyone personally or give everyone an update on what's going on in life, so I figured I would make a video and just kind of tell everyone how I was doing all at once. So, in February, me and John decided that we were going to come to LA, and here we are. We had talked about it for a few months and saved up money and just decided to make the trip. Uh, Johnny just was looking for an adventure, and I was looking to take an honest stab at the whole acting thing. So here I am. Um, I guess here we are. But yeah, I guess I'll just start with the story. So um, end of February, me and John packed up my truck and his car, and started the long trek down. We got halfway down and called up some of the apartments that we had scheduled to look at, and every one of them had bailed on us. So we went from moving down with a place to live to moving down with no place to live and not really any way of fixing that. So we pulled over somewhere in Oregon and we just started cruising Craigslist and making calls and trying to find someone who would just take us in. Uh, that didn't happen by the time we got down here. We stopped in Sacramento at my aunt's house. So Auntie Wendy and the cousins all took us in, and we stayed there for a little bit longer than we always knew we were going to stop, but we stayed a little longer than we thought we would. So we were there for 2 days, and we again looked at Craigslist, tried setting up appointments with people to meet with so that we could move in and get an apartment or a room or a studio or whatever. We decided to leave half of our stuff uh, in her garage, which we are very grateful for. Auntie Wendy, if you're watching this, thank you. We were planning on coming back very soon to get the rest of it, but it's still taking us a little bit of time. So so yeah, we went from Auntie Wendy's house. We went to my grandpa's house. We stayed with him for 2 days. Took him to church on Sunday. Did some yard work. Just kind of helped around the house. Did what we could, and then we made the rest of the trip down here to Los Angeles. We had a couple of places lined up just to look at, but none of them really panned out. The first one, John just had a real uneasy feeling about. The guy answered an intercom and like told us to come back. He's like, "When are you guys scheduled to show up?" We said 10:30. He's like, "Well, then show up then," and it was like 10:25. So he was not exactly ready for us, and it kind of sketched us out. Um, so we looked around. I guess the main thing that hit us right off the bat was how incredibly big Los Angeles is. We had no way of really knowing that uh, it was so massive. I mean, you always hear about these other areas, but I kind of expected them to be a little more separated. But from the time that we drove in on the I-5 and saw city, our first apartment look was in Long Beach, which is the southern side of LA. We drove for an hour and a half straight, and it was nothing but city after city after city. It just didn't stop. Um, so it went for, geez, a good 10, 15 mile, like maybe longer. I honestly don't know how long or wide it is, but we just kept driving, and it was always city. You had city, and then you had beach, and that was it. Um, Also, trying to find the differences between these areas. So we started looking for apartments, and we figured, Long Beach. It was southern, but it was by the beach, so it'd be a great place to start. We'd love to live by the beach. Uh, well, we went, and it was a long ways from like downtown or Hollywood or the main city of LA, and they really defined it as that too. They were like, no, this is Long Beach. This isn't LA. This is Long Beach, even though the city never stopped. Um, but we looked there. We looked at a couple of other smaller places like Redondo Beach. Um, we looked at a few places in Santa Monica, a few places in downtown. Um, but we had a real difficulty finding anything. Um, Nobody wanted to take in two guys. They all said we only are willing to rent the room or whatever we were looking at to one person. Um, the other thing was that everyone wanted three paychecks and proof of income. but we didn't have jobs. We were coming down on savings, so they wouldn't even, some of them wouldn't let us even look at the place until we could prove that we had an income, like an actual steady income. So that led us to the next problem, which was a bit of a catch-22, because then we started looking for jobs. And the problem with finding jobs is that they all wanted to know where you lived. Traffic is so bad in LA that it really matters where you live depending on where you get a job, because they want to know how fast you can show up to work. Uh, and that was really interesting. I never thought about that before. So we looked at a couple places in like Pasadena, which is just north of the Santa Monica Mountains. And yeah, they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're only going to rent to one person, and you guys don't have an income." And we're like, "Well, yeah, man, but we've got months saving. I mean, we could. There's two of us, and we could pay you for weeks, or we could pay you for a couple months in advance." And they didn't. They didn't care. So, so the first 2 weeks we were down here, John and I actually did live in the back of my truck. We're okay admitting that now, being that we have a roof over our heads. But for the first 2 weeks, we lived in the back of my truck, which, as comfortable as that sounds, was not as comfortable as you may think. Uh, we we did a lot of exploring in that time. A lot of time at Starbucks. We got very, very, very sick of Starbucks, but free Wi-Fi, so we'd go in, buy a $2 cup of coffee, and sit for hours and just make appointments and spam Craigslist for jobs and for apartments, and waited to not just waited to see what happens, but at that point there wasn't much we could do. So we would explore after a couple of hours of cruising every day. We'd go down to the beach. We visited, just getting the layout of the area, the difference between the east side and the west side, and the northern. It's so massive, and we did a lot of exploring. We didn't see the same thing twice. But in our exploration, we found a church down in Santa Monica. We were walking by on a Saturday night, and they had something going on, and we just figured, hey, why not? Let's jump right in, see if they've got see what's going on at this place. So we went inside. They were doing an alpha group. It's I guess a fairly popular study right now. So we sat in. We just sat in on it. Talked to people, got invited out for drinks afterwards, and just kind of told people, a little bit of our story and what we were doing and the adventure was. And yeah, we got some really good advice. They actually, one of the people told us that some of the other churches in the area had a forum board for people looking for housing or anything, and we hit it up. And within the next day, we got a response back. We actually got 3 responses, but one guy was willing to listen to us that night, so we drove over there. We met with the guy, and he had a room for rent, and that's what we took. That's where I am now. But after 2 weeks, it was very, very nice to finally just have a place, a bed to sleep in, a place to take a shower instead of the beach. Yeah, just kind of a home base. This isn't a permanent solution. We're looking to move out within the next month or so, just as we progress. We're sharing a room with another guy, so it's 3 of us in a room, and there are a couple more sharing the house along with us. So it's gotten a little cramped, but it's stable. It's a nice neighborhood. We're pretty happy with it, but we're definitely looking to move up to get out and be able to do things on our own. So that's coming in the next couple of months. We both found jobs. John, we had this idea from the beginning of getting a job pretty much by any means necessary, and part of that was just cold calling, just walking right into a place with a resume, and just by I don't know what you want to call it, just moxie balls. We walked in with resumes and just said, "Hi, we'd like to work here," and it actually turned out really well for us. John walked in, and one of the first places he walked into was a Honda dealership. So he walked in and said, "Hi, I'm John, and I'd like to sell cars." And they looked at him and said, "Have you ever sold anything before? Do you have any sales experience?" He said, "None whatsoever." And the guy looked and said, "Okay, sell me your binder. Sell me that binder you got there." Johnny tells him, well, I've had this binder for about 3 minutes. I picked it up at the store across the street to hold the resume I just handed you. And he gave him all the features of the binder that he had with him. And the guy said, you know, man, you look like a natural salesman. We'll put you on the floor. We'll get you some training and see where it takes you. So Johnny got that pretty quick. I think he had gotten that, and we'd already started talks by the time we moved into this place. So within that first week and a half, 2 weeks, I did the same thing. I got an interview and a second interview with Total Wine and More. Really impressed the sales manager, selling him a bottle of scotch. It was something I knew a little bit about, and I looked at it and said, this is exactly what you're looking for. This is the pros and cons of this particular bottle. And he said, it's like, you know, man, it's like you might not know everything, but you did that really well. You were comfortable. You talked it out. It was great. So yeah, it's like, we'd love to hire you. So at the same time, you know, not putting all of our eggs in one basket, I was emailing other things, and eventually got a job valeting. So that was actually really great, because I had these two options. Total Wine and More paid a little bit more, but it was still hourly. They were offering me full time, but valet was offering me comparable hours. You know, they said about 30 hours a week, but it was with tips on top of it. So I figured that if I parked 1 or 2 cars every hour and got $1 tip, I would be making more than I was at the other place. So I took that. That's turned out to be true. I've impressed some of the managers there. They've really liked me, so they bumped my hours. I've got I'm doing 40 hours a week right now, but I know that that's about to come down, just as it's a new company that just took over a spot, so they're about to switch it. But looking for more, looking to get up on that. So yeah, that's the stability questions I figure that most people would ask is, where are you living, where are you working, how are you providing for yourselves? The other questions are, what am I doing with the whole acting thing? So priorities were to find a place to live, find a stable job to pay for that place to live, and make sure that, you know, I was fed. And after that, it was build up and move and start auditioning. So there are a couple of professional websites down here that put casting notices, postings for auditions around. Each of them cost a little bit of money. I've put a little bit into it already. You can get a membership and submit as much as you want, or you could pay for each one. I've paid for a couple just to submit my name and my headshot, but those hadn't panned out. I got registered with Central Casting, which is the largest extra agency in Hollywood. They cast extras for 90% of the productions that go on. So I've already been on a show, which is pretty cool. They paid me for 8 hours, and I stood around in a room. I mean, they're like, okay, stand there and read this book. So I stood there and read a book. It was great. Got fed. That's always one of the perks of being an extra, is that you get meals on set, and they pay you to drink coffee and talk with people, which I can do both pretty well. So, you know, I am a great coffee drinker. But that was the start. Getting comfortable enough in the job now that I'm gonna have a membership for a couple of these websites, so I can start auditioning more. But yeah, it's like just kind of hitting the ground running. Made it so far. We're 3 weeks in. We have jobs. We have food. We're looking at our career fields, and we're definitely working towards it. So yeah, that's the update. This video's already gone on for about 15 minutes, so I don't want to take any more time. But doing well. We're not dead someplace. We're no longer homeless living in the back of my truck. And yeah, that's it. If you guys got any questions, I don't know. Never done a video like this before, so post in the box or leave a comment. I'll probably put this on Facebook for people to see. So do that stuff. All right. This is a video 1 update. This is what is it? May 3rd. This is May 3rd. So month and a half here. Everything's settling in and looking up. So that's my video update. Yeah. I'll talk to you guys all soon. All right. Bye.